Today, we all are gathered here for the second edition of the annual flagship event of MBA Sports Management, MasterStroke'22. It is also our first offline event.
I am Ayush Sharma with my colleague Daksh Kulkar, and we are students of MBA Sports Management. MasterStroke is more than just a sporting event. It revolves around various sporting activities accompanied by various academic events too, making them more exciting and unique than others.
Sounds interesting, Ayush, but what about the objective?
Let me tell you, the aim is to create a platform for industry professionals and sports enthusiasts across the industry to come together. MasterStroke will help students gain critical insights and knowledge about the industry to compete with the best.
How would MasterStroke' help us as a student?
Good question. MasterStroke plays a crucial role in developing industry-ready professionals in the world's booming sports sector. We all know that the Indian sports sector is becoming bigger and better day by day, and the industry is expected to grow threefold by the next 5 years.
Well said, Ayush. In the past, we have had industry stalwarts like Mr. Charu Sharma and Mr. Michael James Dapate as the eminent guest speakers of MasterStroke'22. To add to the list of our esteemed speakers, we have a very special guest among us today, Mr. Vishal Jhunjhunwala.
I'd like to introduce sir, an MBA graduate from Warwick Business School. Mr. Vishal is a brand and sports marketing consultant and the founding partner at Square Consulting, a firm which focuses on delivering value for organizations and brands by providing opportunities to leverage the power of sports and entertainment. For over a decade, he was responsible and associated with Tata Consultancy Services as the head of corporate brand and events. He has spearheaded crucial events and projects handling corporate identity management, brand awareness, advertising and media, to name a few. It's an absolute honor to have you among us, sir. And now I'd like to invite you to please take this session forward.
Hi, good evening. So thanks for the introduction. It's been a long journey to where I've come from, advertising to client side to now consultancy. And the reason to do that was again to, as a slide shows on the left hand side is purpose, emotion and connect. And what I found was when I was on the client side that it was very sell business. Everybody sold you a price, they sell you a value. So we decided, three of us came together and said, let's look at how we can reposition the sports marketing industry in India in a very small way, in our small way rather. And the idea is to demonstrate to brands that sports marketing is not about a logo, it's not about a placement of a billboard, it's about creating that emotional connect with consumers through powerful storytelling. And that's what we're trying to do. It's not an easy journey because international brands have adopted this approach very, very strongly and for a long period of time. Indian brands are slightly behind on the curve, but they're catching up very fast. There are lots of brands who've been investing in sports for a long time. Obviously, the Tata Group comes to mind in the first instance, and they don't really talk about it, so you may not know of the Tata Football Academy, the Tata Archery Academy, the Tata Adventure Foundation, X, Y, and Z, and now obviously title sponsors of IPL. So, but it's been a journey. They didn't do that from day one. They invested in the communities first. They look at where they operate. Look at how can we build everyone, push everyone together along with us. And that's a very different approach to how brands look at sports marketing today and branding also. So we're going to look at it from an angle of purpose. So everyone says you purposely did this. Why did you purposely do that? What's your purpose? And the purpose when it comes to marketing these days is very, very different because if you look at brands, purpose marketing or purpose branding has become a very big hot topic and very cool topic now to discuss in boardrooms and in advertising agencies. What's your purpose when it comes to branding? And the way I look at it is that the purpose didn't stem from 5 years ago or 3 years ago when this buzzword came about, but it started way back in 1963. And 1963 was a watershed moment in sports marketing, according to me. Of course, you had great events like the Tokyo Olympics was in 1964. Then, of course, Beatles came to the US in 1964. Now, this was the first case of taking a brand from England across the pond to the US and really creating a franchise. If you look at it from a branding perspective, they've taken a very local Liverpool brand, taken it global, and created mass hysteria in the US. Okay? And it's not very easy actually to take local big brands across the world. Right? For example, even I just finished reading Federer's biography. And the biggest challenge his agent faced was Federer's Swiss. Federer's a tennis player. How do you make him relevant in the US? Because the tennis is not the number 1, 2, 3, or 4 sport in the US. That was their challenge. You might think Federer is number 1, but to take him and make him a big brand in the US was their challenge. So even to transport brands across geographies is very, very difficult, even when it comes to sport. And of course, another big thing happened in 1964 was the birth of this gentleman. Anyone can figure out who he is? And I mean, on the right, not the one on the left. He transformed e-commerce. Okay, Bezos, right? He was born in 64. He transformed the way, he disrupted the way shopping took place 30 years later. He really converted what was retail to what was online. So, what they call ROPO, right? Research offline, purchase online, or research online, purchase offline. It can work both ways. He really converted this. But what is important to note is that something else was born in 1964, according to me, and that is sports marketing, right? Sports marketing really was born in 1964 by one gentleman, right? He started the Blue Ribbon Company. Anybody who knows the history of sports will probably understand who Blue Ribbon Company is, right? It was born in 1964. But the swoosh didn't come about until 1972, right? So he was inspired by what Churchill said. And Churchill was very clear that if you don't win, it doesn't really matter, right? So even Nike ran an amazing guerrilla marketing campaign during the Olympics in LA. It says, second best doesn't matter. You have to be number 1, okay? And it's very important because when you say that what is our aim, our aim is victory, that's how also the swoosh logo came about, right? The swoosh logo came about because he paid $35 to Caroline who designed the logo. $35. Let that sink in. Today, if you go to design the logo of any company and a brand identity, it's start at $400,000. He paid $35. I think he gave us stock options later. But the point is that it was done because it was a family-run business, so to speak. It was done because he wanted to stress victory, he wanted to stress perseverance, and also, of course, he wanted to sell attitude. He didn't want to sell a shoe, or he didn't want to sell a track pant, because he didn't make track pants in those days. But he wanted to sell a shoe without selling a shoe in the communication. So if you've seen any Nike commercial also, you'll very understand that it's an attitude that the brand has, right? And why does he create that attitude? Because people who compete have an attitude, okay? Even when I play sport, my sport personality is to win. I don't care how good the other player is, I want to win. I want to give it my best. And that's the consumer insight that he picked up on, is to give your best, right? And even if you're not competing at the highest level, the idea always is to perform at your best, perform at your highest level. Because everything is possible if you just do it, right? And that's his slogan, just do it. Very simple. It's outlived many other slogans of many other brands. If you look at slogans of McDonald's even and Coca-Cola, their brand slogans keep changing. But Nike doesn't change it. Look at all the commercials, their just do it tagline is woven into the storyline as well. It's not an isolated piece of communication. It's not just a marketing tagline, it's a belief. And that purpose is what drives this particular brand, okay? It creates that emotional connect, right? And ultimately, as I keep telling my batch who I just taught, what should branding and marketing do? Create profits, right? If it doesn't create money, it doesn't create cash in the bank, it's not going to work. Okay, always remember that.
Greatness, it's just something we made up. Somehow we've come to believe that greatness is a gift reserved for a chosen few. For prodigies, for superstars, and the rest of us can only stand by watching. You can forget that. next round. It's not some precious thing. Greatness is not more unique to us than breathing. We're all capable of it. All of us.
Where's the passion? There is no passion. You can't even say the shoe. Could be a Nike shoe, but not be a Nike shoe. But if you assume it's a Nike shoe, right? The point is again that they have taken a higher plane because they're the leadership. And when you're a leader, you have to take a leadership stance. Otherwise, there's no point trying to be 1 or 2 or 3 in the market. The Tata Group also has a philosophy that if you're not 1, 2 or 3 in the market, exit. Okay? It's no point because that's the tagline of the leadership and trust. So it all stems down from, it's a top-down approach, but the bottom-up also has to feel the passion for the brand. Okay? And what happens is that it's fine doing this, but the next step is how do you continue doing it in a changing environment, right? Millennials, Gen Z, wokeness, X, Y, and Z, everything is in fashion these days, right? You have to keep the brand relevant, okay? So whatever you do, you have to find a system where the brand talks to the consumer that has the highest purchasing power. You might want to sell a 20,000 rupee shoe, but you also have a 5,000 rupee shoe or a flip-flop or something like that. The serious runners will buy your expensive shoes, but the mass, where everybody wants to do their daily workouts and trainings, is where your bread and butter comes from. But you also have to look at it, how do these young people react to communication? What are their cues? How do they respond to what marketers say? Everybody likes to discount branding and advertising saying, I don't believe it. But certain brands transcend that. Certain brands, you actually look forward to their next commercial. You want to see what they've done, whether it's Pepsi with football or Coke with cricket or Heineken with beer or X, Y, Z, you want to see what they've done. Even with credit commercials in India. I look forward to the next campaign because they're quirky, they're funny, they've taken yesterday's stars, made them relevant today, and made them relevant to today's audience. And that's very, very important because the conversation begins on social media, the conversation begins buzz marketing, the conversation begins between friends. And that's very important. So if you look at what they did now, very different field for a different audience. Why? Because women's sports is also growing. Why? Because women are watching sport and women are playing sport, right? In the IPL, if you look at the stats, if I'm not mistaken, about 48% of viewership is female. That's an important stat, and marketers actually don't realize that. How many female-oriented brands advertise or sponsor IPL teams? 1, I think 2. Okay? So it's very, very important that marketers also understand where the business is going, where the market is going, where the industry is going. It's not just the fact that I've got a great product, I'm going to slap it onto some celebrities and I'm going to sell it. There are no celebrities in this ad. It's all about women all around the world coming together. It's young, it's authentic, it's relevant. Now, all this is great, but at the end of the day, they still have to sell a shoe. They make track pants, they make bags, they make a whole lot of accessories. Not a single commercial of Nike ever shows those. Ever. They don't, Nike Golf will have a golf-oriented commercial because of Tiger Woods, but they won't have anything else, right? That's different. That's a different brand, like MJ is also for Nike, the Michael Jordan brand. But for Nike corporate, it's only about the shoes. There's a great ad with Spike Lee and Michael Jordan way back in the 90s. And the simple idea, which they redid for the 50th anniversary a few months ago, was it's all about the shoes. That's all it is. It's all about the shoes. And the reason why I keep saying that, and the reason why I keep saying that branding is immaterial, marketing is immaterial. If you don't build in the purpose and the passion, it must equal to profit. In the last 2 years, during the lockdown, all retailers suffered. So what did Nike do? It went D2C in a big way. Direct to consumer in a huge way, right? And it turned around its revenue. It was 39 billion 2 years ago, it's 46 billion now. Okay? This is unprecedented. Why? What did you do during 2 years of lockdown? What did I do? I ran around my house. That's what I did. I did online exercise classes. I bought a pair of Nikes, which I actually did. I bought a pair of Nikes, that's the only, Nike golf and Nike workout, only 2 Nike shoes I own. Because people will buy products that suit a particular activity that they want to do. So in sports especially, you might have 4 different brands in your cupboard, but you'll always go to one brand for one particular sport. And that's what Nike also does. Nike will want you to go only to Nike for running, but that's their bread and butter. It's the biggest revenue stream for most athletics brand, though in terms of sponsorship and in terms of celebrity endorsements, the biggest spends are obviously on tennis and on NFL and on basketball, right? Because that's just also what drives that particular market. So if you can see, and the one big thing is 650 plus sponsorships that they have. And this includes teams, leagues, and players and influencers, right? They don't do championships. So you won't see Nike Champions League. You won't see Nike Olympics, Nike X, Y, and Z. They will sponsor a team, they will sponsor a player, they will sponsor and social media. And this is what happened. You have 8.7 billion social media engagements. That's just staggering. And that's in the last 1 year. Okay? So right now, everybody or every brand also measures their success in 8.8 numbers of social media engagements. If you were to translate that into a dollar value, that comes to about $650 million worth of value. Discounted. I mean, that's a lot of value by somebody just chattering about your brand. Yes, it does include some influencers, but look at it from the perspective of a brand. How much does inorganic and organic growth mean to them, right? And they live on chatter, which is why they create also commercials that are very topical, that go beyond, that are almost immediate. So if you want Serena retired, the next day they've already had a commercial on air celebrating her success, because they keep it ready. They understand how it is. And you will see a lot of brands that we've discussed in the branding class also, how brands like Zomato, etc., are very topical in their social media communication. Something happens today, Amul, they release an ad tomorrow, right? Similarly, in sports also, to make it relevant and to connect with the consumer, you have to be agile and you have to be on the ball, as they say, right? Second example, I should have actually neglected the entire presentation by saying that there are no models in my presentation. Okay? There is no theory. It's all practical, because ultimately when you go out and you get a job, no one's going to ask you to do a BCG matrix. Really. Okay? You can do it, but no one's going to ask you to actually show me what you've done. Because they're going to be running against time, chasing revenue, okay, and delivering results. They want to see things happening on the ground. Okay? It happened to me, it's going to happen to you as well. Not to say that theory doesn't play a part, you need to know obviously the fundamentals. And if you look at, there are 3 examples that I thought, all 3 examples will have an underlying idea of KYC, know your customer. That doesn't change. Once you know your customer or your consumer, you are going to succeed. Okay? You cannot fail, because you can't afford to fail also. So this is another brand which is enjoyed 192 countries. It's a very popular brand. Okay? It's Heineken. And Heineken has also adopted a different approach. Of course, they can't take celebrity endorsements because of the negativity associated with alcohol. So they go about it in a different way. They do sponsor leagues. UEFA for one is a big sponsorship. They sponsor a lot of tennis. They sponsor Formula 1. They've got a lot of brand assets that they can use, right? But the big idea here is that they want to celebrate the individual moments of joy. Okay? So watching a Champions League final together, watching Formula One together. Because drinking or celebration is communal. It's not individual. It's not that we say you don't enjoy a drink on your own once in a while, but to get that festive atmosphere, to enjoy a sporting event, it must be a sense of togetherness. So, and they're very clear also in their mantra, right? Sports is a big part of their brand ethos. It's a big part of their marketing plan, right? Our brightest star, and if there's always a play on words. Our brightest star because the star with no chromosome. Okay? There's a link. Everywhere there is a link. Okay? A brightest star will light up great moments all over the world. Now this is where it comes from management. If management understands that the brand is so important, everybody else has to work towards building that great brand. Whether it's the receptionist or whether it's the CEO. Okay? It's all about attitude and it's all about talking and walking the brand right from the very beginning. So, obviously, it's also a brand that stays relevant, right? And I say this again and again because this is what they don't teach you in business school, right? How to be agile, how to be nimble, and how to be on the ball. Frankly, they don't. So the Super League was announced, and the next day, 60 hours later, they released this tweet. Okay? Tongue in cheek, but very relevant to its consumers. So this warms up people who would otherwise shun alcohol. But of course, they've got a 0% alcohol brand, also, which is number 3 in the world now. So they've also built around a personality of quirkiness to an otherwise very old brand that didn't really say I'm young. But now again, because of football, because of Formula One, because of tennis, they've now brought in a whole different set of audiences. And like you saw in the Nike commercial, it's very important to understand that you have to be nimble, you have to be agile, and obviously you must be relevant, especially for consumers. Others are not going to warm up your brand and they're not going to buy your brand. If no one is buying your brand, there's no point being a brand, right? You might as well just become a product, and you can be a Me Too product anywhere. Being a brand requires a lot of investment, time, money, effort, and that's why it's built in your mind, right? It's not built in the factory or in the shop. So obviously, in the case of Heineken, it's a very high decibel advertising market. It's highly competitive. I mean, not so much in India, but if you go abroad and you see the number of beer brands available from microbreweries to non-alcoholic beer, X, Y, and Z, there is plenty of options for you, right? But again, like you saw in Nike, they found an untapped growing market. Even in India, if you look at the alcohol industry, why has gin become so popular suddenly? Right? Why have white spirits become so popular? Why are even Scotch brands now targeting women? Because they've seen that a lot more women are drinking both Scotch and gin and white spirits. Okay? Now, what does it happen? Is that you link it to a higher purpose as well. And you take a position of the fact that I'm going to support a community that are otherwise not necessarily marginalized, but possibly forgotten. What will it do to us? What will it do to the brand? Will it give it a fillip? And of course, most importantly, will it create a new set of consumers?
15 years ago, this man never performed to that greatest victory in the pub's history. We're talking about a real football legend that fans will never forget. The one and only Alex Starr. Oh, the goal in the final into the magician.
Everyone thought it's going to be Thierry Henry is going to be the hero. But it's Alex Scott, who also plays for Arsenal. And disclaimer, Arsenal is my favorite team. So it just happens to be the fact that we're top of the league, but I won't bother about it. But we are top of the league. But honestly, I won't say we're top of the league anymore, but we are top of the league. So if you look at the last table, we're top of the league. You know that? Yes, top of the league. I think, yes. Only one loss. Yeah, I think that makes us top of the league. Yeah. Okay. So the point is that you can either be, you can either do the same thing over and over again, expect a different result, which is insanity, or you can adopt where the market and the consumers are going, which is what brands do. Which is all the brands that you see today, which is basically 3 brands, adopt that same approach. Right? So, but that's not enough, right? When you sponsor anything in the world, please understand you get a list of assets. Right? You get a list of assets from the asset seller. If you don't use those assets effectively, your sponsorship is going to fail. Then your CFO will ask you, what's my ROI? And you start blubbering and say, I don't know. There are no shortcuts to this, right? Whatever money you put into sponsorship, please be prepared to really spend similar amount or double that amount on activation, which is what brands like Heineken and other brands in the world do very, very effectively, okay? So, but again, you have to create authentic and relevant content to your consumers. It's okay to make a TV commercial with snapshots of football players and say, Heineken, champions of the world. But that's not what they did.
I like this one.
Dylan, right? See these twisted seats? If you can convince your lady to buy these two seats, you will get 2 tickets to the UEFA Champions League final. Honey?
It's a pair of seated seats.
Exactly.
$18.99 for 2 chairs. $2,000 I can get a good mattress. But why would I stay in seats in my house?
Sweetie.
No. Any good stuff you get it?
My part.
Why don't you just sit on the couch?
They just spoke to me.
I don't know what this is doing here. Some sort of prank. They spoke to you.
They did.
Do you realize that this is half my wedding dress?
What does it get to you?
No. What the? Did you know that?
I do. I'm
You just let them go. They might be bigger budget.
What about that? It's plastic. It's durable. It's an investment like those designer handbags of yours. Don't even have to worry about the costume, remember? It would contrast well because it would be a sculptural piece. It might always come
I
out.
thought you hate red.
I know, right? This is all an industrial field. And industrial is anything like that.
Not right. There's no way this is going to pass. It's not happening. No, no, we're going.
Audrey, trust me on this?
Okay.
Decisive victory there for Dylan. Yes, Andy, it was an easy, convincing effort to buy those seats. Just look at his body language. Calm, collected. It looks like, in my opinion, he's well on his way to the UEFA Champions League final. All he needs to do now is look under those seats. These are 2 tickets to go to London to watch the Champions League final in London. So we're gonna London.
I love the line where she says, $1,800, that's, same price as my wedding dress on Netflix, just buy a cheaper one. So, obviously, when you're a sports fan, you got to also understand, look at the simple insight. Simple insight. Couples bicker when shopping for furniture. Okay? Simple insight. How do you convert that into relevance to football, into a real-time situation? Create that moment of consumer wow, right? Delight the customer. I mean, probably only drink Heineken for the rest of his life now. Okay? And he tells his friends, social media amplification, X, Y, and Z, PR story, everything that links around. Okay? But again, what is important? Purpose plus passion must be equal to profit. Okay? Every alcohol brand suffered in the last 2 years. It's not uncommon knowledge, right? But these guys have now bounced back. Okay? It's not back to pre-COVID levels, but the fact is that they've got a huge revenue growth. They've become one of the fastest growing alcohol brands in the world as per Cantor. And it's a very important point to know that they've done it without stepping back or pushing back on marketing investments. That's another important point to see over here, that if you believe that there's a recession or if you believe that there's a downturn, no one's asking you to spend more money. But the moment you spend the same amount of money, it looks like you're spending more because everybody else was quiet. Okay? So leaving the lights on is also very important in marketing. You must leave the lights on when it comes to marketing and branding. last one is topical in the sense that because it's it's to do with no guesses, you have to do with tennis, okay, but it's also to do with other sports as well. What is unique about Wimbledon? It's a very clean stadium. Okay, there are no billboards around. Okay, there are 7 brands that you can see around Wimbledon. Okay, there are no big backdrops over there. This, of course, is the longest match, if you guys remember. Right? We have to spill over to the second day, 7 hours and 47 minutes. The last game is 26-24. And Rolex is there. There are only 5 or 6 other brands present. Okay, some of them are Slazenger, Jaguar, Oppo, Robinsons, Lemon Body Water, and Avion. There are about 4 or 5 brands that you can see around sale. It's a very, very clean setup. Okay, so when brands advertise over here or partner with the championship like Wimbledon, they do it for a lot of different reasons. They don't do it for logo presence as such, but look at the proximity of and the relevance to where the logo is to what you're watching and what you're saying. So obviously the Rolex story is very, very interesting also. From the beginning they've been in the pursuit of excellence, okay? And what they call as perpetual. And perpetual is part of their DNA of Rolex, right? Perpetual date adjust. That's one of the biggest oyster brands, the perpetual oyster. And of course, the one important point here also is that they give a very, very long-term support, okay? So if you notice some of their brand ambassadors and the properties that they've been associated with have been there for a very long time, especially Wimbledon for that matter, okay, over 30 years. It makes a big difference because when you do something like that, the connect is not only with the consumers and the familiarity of the brand, but also with the asset owner, right? They like it when you partner them for the long term because then they will do more for you, okay, at the same investment level. That's also very critical to understand. So obviously they also invest in excellence, right? Here's Tiger Woods, and after his scandal a few years ago, a lot of brands dismissed him, a lot of brands left him, but they stuck by him. There are about 3 big brands that stuck by him. Nike being one, Rolex being the other, can't remember the third, but he pays back. He wins the Masters for a record 5th time in 2019. Okay? Now this is the kind of ethos and the value that the brand also puts in the asset that they sponsor. If you're putting a lot of money into it and tomorrow you drop the celebrity or the property, please understand that tomorrow somebody else can pick it up. And maybe your legacy is wiped out, or maybe you're still considered to be the sponsor. So if I ask you, name the 3 title sponsors of IPL in the last 10 years. Tata and DLF, right? Now, nobody calls it DLF IPL. I mean, I never called it DLF IPL when it was DLF IPL. It was just IPL, right? But the point is that to erase that kind of memory, Vivo came in, tried to get Vivo IPL. Now, to erase the Vivo memory, Tata has to invest a lot into building the Tata IPL brand. Okay? So, but with Rolex, it's a little different. Because Rolex doesn't tell time, it tells history. So whatever they sponsor, whatever they partner with, whoever they partner with, there is a sense of history and a sense of going forward as well. Where are you going to take the next step? Where are you going to take the next plunge? What is the next adventure?
How exactly do we measure greatness? By the number of titles? The number of Grand Slams? Perhaps. But there are certain things that numbers can't convey. The beauty he instilled in the discipline, enriching and perfecting his game year after year. His grace and elegance on and off the court, which made him one of the most revered athletes of our time. Numbers will never fully encompass the extent of his legend, continually growing, nor the breadth of his legacy, perpetually inspiring. For his is a greatness that can never be measured.
So building the product benefit perpetual, bringing the benefit of Federal being perpetual greatness, release it 24 hours after you retire. 24 hours after you retire. Now that's the power of agility, nimbleness, and brand first. Okay, if you are brand first, then you can do all these things. You can create content that's meaningful and relevant. And obviously, it's not just that Rolex is all about sport. The purpose for Rolex is all about doing also good for the environment, doing good for the communities that they operate, like the Tata Group. And therefore, they also look at how can we build a better world. Okay, it's not just about sport. So the sponsorship kind of transcends a lot more than just being on Formula One or on tennis or on athletes. So they link it with their brand purpose.
It takes something special to dive into the unknown, to face the unpredictable and unlock the mysteries that await beyond. Something tough, reliable, to fuel your confidence where elements seem to conspire to blur your senses. An unwavering ally, relentlessly field tested by the pioneers who ventured there before. It was constantly perfected over time. For those who push their limits always further and shine an ever new light on our world. The Somaiya.
Okay, perpetual. Again, always innovating, always changing, always making it better. Better for the product and better for the world. How does it relate to consumers again? Purpose, passion has to be equal to profitability. Okay, so it's remarkable that almost 1/3 of all Swiss watches sold are Rolex. In India, if you try to get a Rolex, it's next to impossible to buy a Rolex at retail price because there will be a not because they're expensive, but because they're just not available. So you'll end up paying a premium, which is ridiculously high because product is just not available in this market right now. Okay? Of course, there was a 7% average increase during COVID. So luxury product sales went through the roof in the last 18 months, especially watches, right? You could not buy a good watch if you wanted to because there just was no supply, right? Not that they held back supply, but demand was so high, they couldn't keep up. One of the things also is that, okay, it's all great, but there's also a younger audience that's coming up that's buying. So I found one quote which I thought was quite amusing, which was, time is money, so I went and bought a Rolex, Swiss Khalifa. Okay? So it's not that it's only about the people who arrive, people who are over the age of 50 or whatever, who can afford a Rolex, who work hard, who build a business, who achieve their life, but also the new entrepreneur, the new money. Everybody also understands what a status symbol is and what or how good a product it is also. Okay? Now, it's important that coming back to where we started was what is the purpose of all this? Why are we doing this? Why do brands do this? Why do they try and build a storyline that is meaningful and relevant? Okay? They have to do that because in your textbook also, in the branding textbook, which has been authored by Jacob here, the point of difference, right? POD. That point of differentiation has to be established. If that point of differentiation is not established in the consumer's mind, your product and brand is going to fail, right? And also, what happens is that corporate activism that brands have taken recently, in the short term or immediate impact may seem negative to some consumers, and those are consumers who are mainly on social media venting their frustration. But please understand, that's like a minuscule population that is saying that, oh, this is bad, or this, how can a brand do it? Nike faced the same issue when they backed Colin Kaepernick, they took the knee at the US national anthem for the NFL, but they backed him. Sales went through the roof when he launched his brand a few months ago, his own shoe. So therefore, it is a question of brands also backing the right horse, and backing the right horse with conviction, okay? Because in time, over the long term, everything should be done for the long term, you will get better market share.
Family definition, no
guy lost his eyesight when he was a kid. So his brother took him cross-country running, and he's shouting, you could hear that in the film, there's a tree, there's a rock, and he had to dodge it. And then on to become world-class skiers. Now that is the power of storytelling when you find powerful stories. And then the brand finds a fit. Also, it has to be believable, right? It has to be relevant. So, the few things that we can take is that obviously you need powerful stories, you need to engage your audiences, X, Y, and Z. But most importantly, anyone can tell me where this quote is from? Exactly. So, I started watching the series again last week because I wanted to see whether it made any more sense to me. And it does the second time around. So, this is a very important quote. It's quite relevant to brands also. Be true to yourself, be authentic to yourself, never let your shield down, and you will succeed. Okay? So, the point is that it doesn't matter, I had this in my branding presentation also to my class, is that it doesn't matter how many people hate your brand as long as enough people love it. Okay? And that's very, very important because the haters are very few actually. They're the ones who shout on social media, but the shouting on Twitter is a whimper compared to the number of consumers who buy your brand. So be true to yourself, be authentic, and defend what you do. Otherwise, it's absolutely no point. Yeah? And with that happy note, end of day's play. As usual, I never have a full house in my class, so some people are missing.
That is the attendance sheet.
This is one of the better days. Sorry?
Lots of Manchester United jerseys.
Yes, I know. I didn't put the other picture on because it's all of you. Okay, I guess I think of Q&A. If there are
any questions, please raise your hand and ask.
None. Yes.
With purpose, like if I start a brand, if purpose is something that will never change, it has to be constant throughout the, like, or can I have a change in purpose somewhere in the middle where I think, okay, the times are changing, the constant changing, will there be a or will it impact?
I think you have to be agile enough to understand where the world is going. Okay. Now the purpose can always be like do good, as a broad, very broad purpose. But do good today may be environment. Do good tomorrow may be poverty. Okay. As long as you're operating within the idea that you don't want to be bad and you want to be good. I think Google's mantra was don't do evil or do something like that, right? Yeah. Do no evil or something like that. Be good, whatever. But the point is that you must at least be consistent to that particular mantra. So tomorrow we say that I want to empower women. That's my purpose. So whatever you do should be around women. Could be education, could be sport, could be X, Y, and Z, could be health, you know. So, but there's no enough brands change their positioning every few years. You know, Coke has done that, Burger King has done that, McDonald's has done that, because there's also a changing consumer preference and taste. Now that's from a product level, mainly from product level, but they may still support, their purpose is still to do something for the community, right?
So ultimately the aim is to create profits. So as Nike make other products too, how do they measure the impact of their commercial on their other products?
So when you look at, so there is a, I didn't put down all the figures of Nike, but the intangible brand value on their market capital is very high in Nike because they spend close to 40 to 50% of their spend is on sponsorship and advertising and marketing. So the intangible asset in that sense is very high. Now, if they stop advertising, what would be the incremental sales? That would be interesting experiment that they, for 1 year or 2 years they don't do any marketing. And then they see whether there's impact. Now, what is the impact on accessories? I don't know because I have not seen the classification, but from whatever financial data that I have seen in the last 2 years at least, at the moment they continue to increase the expenditure or went direct to consumer with the Nike ID, like the example I showed in class also, is to gain market share to be where the consumer is. So obviously there is a link, and I'm sure they measure it. They have a Nike dashboard also, one example I think I showed in class. So they have a Nike dashboard that actually track that if a shoe is picked up tomorrow and if, for example, they have an advertising spend on that shoe, how is it correlated? Okay, because the moment it leaves the shoe, the RFID picks it up, it puts it into the system, and then it tracks the sale immediately. That's a Nike dashboard.
So we look at, say, if I take the example of the recent Olympics that happened, a lot of different brands, why the ad goes with their message. If I may take a few examples. So we came up with an ad of Chamakte Rehna where they showed the recent fencing athlete who was there. IQOO also came up with an ad supporting para athletes. So while a lot of them in their ad was completely on brand message, where can brands or where can we as marketers draw the line between doing something because it's in the moment, it's happening, everyone's talking about Olympics, whereas actually going ahead and on ground and supporting these people, like we're actually going and doing something, I think we're actually going and showing tangible benefits.
So you should ask the brand manager.
No, but
What have they done after the commercial?
No,
What is their plan? I don't know. I hope that the brand manager brain or IQO now invests in women's sports at the grassroots level or XYZ. So in India, another good example is JSW, right? So they built the Inspire Institute of Sports, they train the athletes win medals. There is a chronological progress in the ROI. So brands that support that institute will say, okay, we put in so much money, the medals are coming in. Getting a medal at the global stage is an 8 to 12, maybe 16-year cycle. It doesn't happen overnight that way. So for the two brands that you mentioned, I would hope that if they support Paralympics or if they support the fencer, they will now continue to support that lady in international competitions. They'll improve her training in India, they'll send her to competitions abroad, because the biggest problem for Indian athletes is international exposure. It's not that they aren't good or they aren't great. They don't get to compete on level playing field with the international competitors on a regular basis. That's very important. So for the para athletes also, what is the program that they're adopting now with the Para Athletes Federation? Are they now ingrained into the grassroots level as well? That is the important part. Making a commercial is great. It's great, feel good. It's a brand tick box.
yeah, exactly.
But after that, you've got to put your money where your brand is, basically.
I wanted to understand, the startup culture has increased a lot in India. So the examples that you gave were mostly brands that have become big after a very long time. So currently, how do newer brands and young brands focus on purpose-driven marketing, and can they even do it with the limited budgets that they have?
So recently, Crypto.com just put out a sponsorship, right? That's a startup, put out a sponsorship of football, straight away, okay? In India also, there are a lot of crypto brand startups, in new banking, digital financial payments who just stopped advertising because the market has taken a downturn. New brands who want to get into purpose-driven marketing from day one, I think it's a little dangerous. I think first, establish your brand, let the consumer accept your product, let there be a trust factor involved, and then get into it. It's not to say that startups haven't done it. There's one recent startup that started giving employment to ex-athletes, right? And they've done it very successfully. They partnered with the foundation and they said that we will give full-time jobs to 10 athletes per year or something like that, right? So it's not that it's not happening. Now their purpose is to give them a second chance, a second career. Okay? Now the question is that A, how long will that last? And they don't do any advertising with this brand, right? They're very clear that they will use this as a PR story because this is their purpose. Okay? And this is how they got involved in sport and a purpose to build their brand. So it is possible because actually take cricket out of the equation. It's not difficult or it's not expensive to get into sports marketing in India. In fact, it's very, very reasonable and cheap. But the point is that most brands first will look at exposure, right? They won't look at emotion. The moment you shift it to emotion, then automatically you get that exposure as well. Because people start talking about it, people will be happy with the brand, they like your brand, they'll say, okay, they're doing good. So it's a question of also the promoters having faith and taking a brand leap actually. Excellent. Thank you very much.
productive session, especially for the students of MBA Sports Management, right? So, I personally would like to thank Daksh for helping me write this speech, and I would like to thank Anjali ma'am, Milind sir, and this discussion reminds me of a quote. A brand is not just a logo, a website, or a business card, it's an experience, and an experience very well shared.
Well, I personally like the part that purpose plus passion is profit, which made me realize that without passion, there's no concrete purpose, hence there's no business ahead. Right? Going further, as a token of our appreciation and gratitude, we request Professor Emeritus Isaac Jacob sir to honor our distinguished guest, Mr. Vishal Jhunjhunwala.
Thank you.
I thank Mr. Jhunjhunwala for sparing his valuable time for us and gracing this event. Your thoughts have surely motivated all of us. Special thanks to Mr. Joe James for being there for being here with us today. We would also like to thank the professors, the students, and the staff members for making this event a grand success. Thank you, everyone. So now, before proceeding with the ID, we request the